You can't control everything that happens in your life, but you can control how much power anxiety has over your life. And it starts with understanding how it actually works. My name is Michael Perry, and I'm joined today by Justin Gates, and this is the New Ashla Podcast. Hello and welcome to the New Ashla Podcast, home of shadow work and self-mastery, where spirituality and psychology come together to help you make a roadmap to take charge of your life.
Spiritual psychology.
What did you? What was the phrase you coined it as?
Psychospirituality.
There we go. We're gonna make that a new phrase. It's gonna be big. So today we're diving into anxiety, which is something that I think most people are impacted by in some way, shape, or form. And for many, it's crippling. I've seen anxiety take people and just slowly take over their lives. And I think in many ways for each of us, it finds its own way to nestle in and cut us off from certain things, whether that's going out, trying new things, pushing out of our comfort zone and leaving that job. There's so many areas anxiety has a hold of us.
It's when fear overloads our caution, right? Because we're always constantly scanning for something to happen, something bad to happen. I know it's coming. And I just need to protect myself. I need to hide. I'm scared. I'm afraid. And you know, I'm not calling you a coward, and this isn't a personal failing. It is a physical malady in some cases, and that's where it hits us the most. Is right. I mean, dead center. It makes it hard to breathe, and we get these weird pains. And you know, the first time I ever remember actually having a panic attack from being anxious, right, was not too long ago. I went my whole life without really having any kind of anxiety episode, which, you know, everybody would probably say, well, how is that possible? I just don't remember it, right? But I do remember having to go to the hospital because I thought I was having a heart attack. Because I couldn't breathe and I was having pressure. And I told Heather, I was like, hey, I know you're probably not expecting me to ever say this to you, but get me to the hospital. I think I'm having a heart attack or something. But it was anxiety. It was it was anxiety that I had that triggered a panic attack. And let me tell you something, your perspective changes on things. You know, I used to kind of, you know, the way I was raised and the kind of the way I grew up and the way I was as a young man and even into my 30s, you know, it was always like, you know, tough guys don't deal with that. And if you are showing that, then you're just being a little weak. You know, you're just a little weak sauce or something, man. You know what I mean? Like, you know, toughen up. But let me tell you something. I became a believer that day because I went to the hospital and they hooked me up to all the machines and did EKGs and even put dye in my body and did a MRI, I think is what they call it. And they're like,
CT.
A CT scan. And they're like, there's nothing wrong with you physically. They're like, this is just, you just had a panic attack. And I'm like, what the hell's a panic attack? Because there was nothing, like I wasn't being chased by a lion or anything. There was nothing to cause me to have that. And for a minute, I felt like, dude, I lost all my strength. I'm weak now. Right. But I want you to understand. And I'm kind of hard-headed if you guys haven't figured that out. So sometimes I have to learn lessons the really, really hard way. And I learned a lesson that day that anxiety is one of those experiences that you feel like you're kind of losing it, man. But it's not. It's anything but that. And like we always say, I realized it wasn't an enemy that I needed to conquer. Again, it's a what? It's a messenger. So...
Well, I mean, I would argue anxiety is an emotion, and anxiety is a good emotion. You talked about caution earlier. All right, anxiety in healthy doses is caution. It's something to alert us that we might not be doing something right or that something might be amiss. Anxiety can be healthy, but if we start shoving it down, the one thing I've noticed is anxiety will talk to you. But if you don't listen, it's going to start yelling. And the longer you wait, the more it's going to yell, and the more you're going to be feeling overwhelmed by it anytime it surfaces.
Right. Yeah. But, you know, I just want to set the tone here, even though, and there's a lot of people out there, Michael, that'll still say, I don't get anxious. I don't have panic attacks. You know, this doesn't bother me because I'm tough. Yeah, keep saying that. Keep saying that to yourself. You will learn the hard way like me. And it has nothing to do with strength. It is a messenger. Like all things that we talk about, these are messengers. Really, in some sense, a guardian, right?
Yeah.
It's doing the job that it's designed to do. It's lighting you up, man. It's like, you know, you got these bells and whistles going off a little bit. What we're talking about
You
today,
know,
though, is when that goes to extremes, because your nervous system and your active guardian doesn't know the difference sometimes. Misunderstands a lot of what we need, right?
well, I think often, I mean, you look at the brain and it's the amygdala that just gets hyperactivated. And often, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so many people operate from their amygdala, which is pretty much their emotions. And when you're not self aware, whenever it gets triggered, whenever the amygdala flares up, especially depending on your stress response, whether that's flight or freeze,
Mm-hmm.
it will, it can be incapacitating. And a lot of it is you haven't managed your anxiety for so long that it now has complete reign over your nervous system.
Yeah, there's an axiom for this. One that really you and I and many of my students have had to have some pretty long conversations about, because on the surface it feels like something else. And I'll read it to you. Axiom of light: as danger draws near, ready yourself by deepening the stillness within. For eager anticipation will only push you off balance. Now, a lot of folks, when they hear that axiom, they think, okay, be paranoid because danger is everywhere, right? There's another axiom that talks about dangers around every corner type thing. But that's not the point of this axiom. The point is that whether danger is real or imagined, we must do our best and prepare ourselves not to do everything with that anxious anticipation,
No.
right? Because with that hyper sense of awareness about potential dangers, again, whether they're real or imagined, and even if they are imagined, I just want to point out, doesn't mean they're not real to you, because you are experiencing something, right? It doesn't mean that just because I can't see the danger that you're experiencing doesn't mean that it's not real for you. It may not actually be real in a sense, right? But it could still be real for you.
Well, and it's
Uh,
like the body stores memories within the nervous system, right? And
mm-hmm.
when they have scientific research that proves this, that when we go through something stressful, we can easily, in imagination, create the same reaction within our body that
Yes.
of being in threat. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of what PTSD is. It's the nervous system remembering those emotions and reliving that event. And we part of managing anxiety is processing these emotions and learning to retrain the nervous system to how to respond. Because that's exactly what you're saying. I mean, it's
Mhm.
the nervous system remembers
Well, and
and it
here's the
doesn't know
thing
the
too.
difference.
Here's the thing too. We have to understand a simple law of the universe that we believe. You create with your thoughts. Everything is energy. Energy becomes matter. It's just the way things are, right? And if you believe in something like the law of attraction, where you can create or manifest abundance or manifest a house or a car or whatever, why can't you imagine or create danger or whatever, right? You
Yeah.
can. But this isn't just something that affects the mind. This is not an affliction of our minds. It starts there, but when that anxiety reaches a boiling point, it's a very real physical thing. Tons of tension. I get it so bad in my neck, so bad in my neck that I can't even turn my head.
Mine shows up in my chest.
Hypervigilance. I get it in my chest too. I get these weird pains, right? Like now at this point, I'm just like, well, if it's a heart attack, then I'll find out in an hour, I guess. I can't run to the hospital every time I think I'm having a heart attack, right? But yeah, you get this bad tension. You get hyper vigilant, which creates what? These racing thoughts, uncomfortableness, tightness in your chest. So, and we often, like I did, I thought these things were something physically wrong with me. Like, hey, I need to get help right now, man. This could kill me. But and this is where we kind of get screwed up, because it could be something wrong with you. But if you have a history with anxiety, right? It could be simply, your nervous system not feeling safe about something. And again, it could be real or imagined. This is why we do a lot of mindfulness. This is why we do a lot of breathing. This is why we do a lot of meditation, so that we start to kind of know when these things are going to be triggered and how to kind of ground ourselves. And I know we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but again, it's often misunderstood that anxiety is something that's just mental. Go talk to somebody about it. They'll say, okay, I will, but can I get my body back in balance because it's freaking out right now?
Nope.
Right. And the physical part of this, we talked about a few times in some other shows where we physically learn how to carry trauma. And it's not something we do on purpose, but what do we always say? The body remembers, right? The
Yep.
body remembers.
Well, I think with anxiety too, I mean, again, with the nervous system and how it does remember past grievances, past offensives. I mean, one thing that is interesting about anxiety is it follows patterns. So you will
Mm-hmm.
notice that it's certain things that trigger anxiety. Is it social interaction? Is it going and talking to strangers? Is it, I'm thinking of very basic ones right now, but there's certain things we do that ingrain anxiety into us. And the repetition of letting anxiety control us in those moments perpetuates it to higher levels.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, you go and ask a girl out, you get rejected. You start developing anxiety. You go to ask out another girl and you're already anxious about it. She picks up on it. You get rejected. And now all of a sudden, every time you go to approach a girl, it's instant panic attack.
Yeah. 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 There is a axiom for that too. Can you guess which one? There's only 100. Can you guess?
If you
Others will perceive trepidation. Be mindful. People pick up on what you're putting down, and
they'll
you may not be trying to, but they pick it up. Especially the women. They're very more naturally attuned to these things. They pick them up way better than we do. Typically speaking, of course, there's exceptions to every rule, but sometimes she'll know when I'm upset about something before I even realize I'm upset about it. You know what I mean?
they'll
But they're just more naturally attuned to that. But people will pick up on it. They just do. And yeah, and then you get locked in that pattern because it just gets
exactly.
worse and worse and worse and worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. You see this dating epidemic going on now where more and more men are just avoiding dating in general. And part of that's just the chaos of the dating scene right now, but a lot of it is people are avoiding stressful situations. And unfortunately, getting in the dating scene is always stressful.
Yeah. Well, Heather and I are so old, I just went to a cave and just bonked her in the head and took her back to my cave. That's how long ago it has been since I've dated. I don't know if we still do that stuff. I don't know. It sounds really stressful. I just can't like I mean it does. I can't imagine having to be completely vulnerable and naked in front of
Yeah.
someone new. I can't imagine that. That stresses me out a little bit just thinking about it because I mean
Now, I watch so many dating experts sort of dissecting what's going on in the dating scene today, and it's fascinating to hear how corrosive it has become and how difficult it is to really navigate.
yeah.
From too many opportunities being out there to just the insecurities that have become so rampant in society. It's creating such a crazy divide.
Yeah. Yeah. And from the Ashla perspective, this is a form of disconnection, I would say, and a kind of warping or distortion of our instinct to be connected, but be connected harmoniously, not with fear. So, of course, the antidote to that is trying to reconnect first to ourselves and try to do that. But yeah, but when it rises, it's a tough road. I mean, I've seen people, I've seen it paralyze, like actually, not like actually paralyze people, but make it to where people literally just can't function with the simplest things, which is a big problem. And I know anxiety and stress have become an epidemic. I mean, stress kills people. We know this. It kills you.
Well, what really blows my mind the most about anxiety in society nowadays is part of anxiety is learned helplessness, right? And we live in a society where it's a lot harder to survive, get your own home, pay for the minimal. People are living with their parents till past age 30. This is becoming normal.
Mm-hmm.
And when they don't have the struggles they would have otherwise, it slowly teaches them helplessness.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it more and more, it exacerbates the struggle of going out there and confronting life more and more. And again, like the economy is a big part of that. But there's also a level of just inferiority that is instilled in people who feel defeated or helpless to really get ahead.
So I want to set the tone for people today to look at anxiety as a messenger, as a form of communication, right? And at this point, we're talking about a disconnect of good communication with ourselves, because there's a part of us that still believes that we must be hypervigilant, prepared, guarded, or have the perfect circumstances just to survive. And listen, if we can learn to listen to it as in all things we talk about, not be more afraid because of it, not feel shame because of it, and certainly not suppress it. This opens that doorway to healing. So kind of the tone we set today is that we should try not to fight this, to defeat this, right?
Yep.
Really, if we want to reconnect and we want to treat this as an opportunity for communication with ourselves, we need to not fight, and we need to start asking questions. What is this trying to protect me from? Or what part of me needs to feel safe again, or whatever? Those kind of questions. We just need to stop and ask questions at this point. So yeah, I hope that sets the tone for today, because, this doesn't have to be permanent. We can work through this. We can heal this, especially if you're amping yourself up to the point where you're having actual panic attacks all the time. That's got to be miserable. It's got to be a ton of suffering. I've only had one or two panic attacks my whole life, and that's all I ever want to have. They were bad, So
No, it's a good tone too. I think one other thing is to really hone in on, and we're going to talk about this later in the episode, is a lot of anxiety is based on outside expectations, or what we perceive is the expectations of the outside. When we start to learn to manage the inside, to validate our own life and our own circumstances,
yeah,
and not seek externally for trying to reach a goal, you can go miles.
yeah. As I said because I was just editing today, I was just editing the show on dealing with family conflict, because of the big dinners and big gatherings we're going to be having, most of us, throughout the rest of this year. Learning that we can't control another person, we can't control their responses, we can't control their path, we can't control anything. We can only control ourselves. And borrowing from what you just said, a lot of that comes from us trying to control everything too. There is a part of us that must let go of something. And that's why, today we need to make sure that we're communicating with ourselves when we're talking about this, because really that's a conversation you have to have with yourself, because it's only talking to you, right? And so we have to make sure we ask those questions. Hey, what is your problem, bro? What,
Yeah, right.
What's going on here? But you can't keep living with these bad panic attacks and stuff, because over time the stress will cause disease. It will. Once you actually physically, literally damage your heart to a point where it can't be fixed. So let's start now. Let's start having these conversations with ourselves now. A lot of what we do is about talking to ourselves. A lot of it is about the introspection. That's probably the most important thing we can do.
Yeah.
And
Cultivating
make
that
sure we do it.
self-awareness.
Yeah, we got to do it.
Yeah.
We got to do it. It sucks and it's hard, but we got to do it.
So let's dive into, we were talking earlier about how the mind and the body interact together. Often anxiety will start in the body. You'll get that nervous flare up, and your mind will start creating a story around that sensation. And often you are going into a situation that mirrors a past experience, which 9 out of 10, your anxiety lives in the past. And it's trying to give you messages, warning flags, so you don't get hurt again, so you don't mess up or make a fool of yourself. But as soon as it hits the body, that's when the self-doubt starts creeping in. That's when the shame kicks on. That's when we start spiraling.
Yeah. As you said, it always begins in the body, and then the mind follows. And your mind can tell all kinds of things, like if you go to Google and try to type in some symptoms, don't ever do that. But if your mind does that, your mind will access every literal thing that you can think of that you're dying right now, right?
Yeah.
Your mind will spin out of control, and you are 100% correct. I believe that the body does fire first, and the mind tries to make sense of what's happening, because a lot of this comes from our subconscious thinking, back in the head type stuff.
Well, 95% of our thoughts are the unconscious mind, and our unconscious mind is so deeply connected to our bodies.
Yeah. I mean, dude, this stuff comes from the oldest, most primal part of our biology, that nervous system and everything that's connected to it.
I mean, things you'll notice when you start to get ready to go into that panic mode, tightening of chest, nausea, racing heart, like all
Mm-hmm.
sorts of things go on within the body. You start feeling antsy, you start twitching or moving your hands around. And I mean, there's all these signs to keep an eye out for. And that's a great way for you to sort of step into. Is there something I should be concerned about right now, or is my
Mm-hmm.
body just remembering?
Yeah, and there is, the body's firing and the mind's trying to make sense of everything, and it comes rushing in, man, like a hero going, "Oh, hold on, calm down, body, calm down. What's happening? Tell me, speak to me, buddy. Tell me what's going on," right?
You know?
And the body's just like freaking out, and the mind's like, "Oh crap, oh crap." And our minds hate uncertainty. We don't like
Yeah.
that. We like knowing exactly. It's like when your pet is sick and they're sick, but they can't tell you what's wrong. It's just so frustrating. It's so maddening sometimes. It's like, and they're just sitting there and they're whining and they're whimpering and you can't, you know, and you don't know what to do for them. When your kids can talk, they'd say, "Mom, my head hurts," or "Dad, my arm hurts." Well, okay, now at least I can focus on something. But when the body's freaking out, the mind can't get a straight answer. It's just
Yeah.
the console is going freaking out. There's like sirens and alarms, and the mind's just like, I can't handle this. I don't know what to do.
I think Inside Out painted such a beautiful picture
Oh
with
yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
too. Yeah.
That's what I was trying to describe. I couldn't remember where I remember that from, but yeah.
Well, and it's like it's so often we'll go to the worst case scenario. We catastrophize so
Hmm.
easily. I mean, it starts from I'm nervous to ask this girl out to, oh my god, she's going to think I'm a complete loser. She's going to shame me in front of everybody here. She's going to come at me, degrade me, whatever.
Yeah,
Like, we're just
yeah,
going to root in that example.
yeah. But again, the thing is, the body generates the anxiety, or at least triggers it, or it's triggered in the body, and the mind is trying to interpret it. But so what does the mind do? It goes to the worst thing it can think of, the absolute worst, because it's trying to protect you too, and it's like, but it'll throw the baby out with the bathwater, man. It will do crazy things to try and stop everything, to calm everything down. But for us, the Ashla perspective on this is where the axiom confusion distorts reason really comes to play, because the sensation, the message of it is pretty neutral. It's just your energy moving through the body, trying to alert you to something. But then the story we attach to it becomes the source of the suffering, and we think of the worst thing possible. And this is why that self-awareness is so important. And this is why, because we can catch those triggers, because something triggers it. Now, a lot of times, as we said, it triggers without our knowledge, because then we start freaking out consciously trying to figure it out. But the more you do this work, the more you can start catching those little triggers that happen.
It starts weaving a story, and then you just end up following along with it. And real key is just having that self awareness. When you
Yeah,
get into those moments, realize what those triggers are. Stop yourself. Like, I'm spiraling right now. Right now, my mind is taking me for a ride. One
right.
one exercise I had a therapist give me that I absolutely loved was this exercise called the Wise Mind, and it's pretty much taking the experience and you go to that worst case experience, the worst case scenario. Then you go, what's the best case scenario? And 99% of the time, it's going to be somewhere in the middle of that.
Right.
And that can really help ground you out of that catastrophe mode you go into. It can help
Yeah.
sort of give you a light of like, no, this is probably what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's going to suck, but at least it isn't the worst possible thing ever, right? And I know it feels like it is when you're going through it. I really do understand that. I'm not trying to make light of it, because, again, whether it's real or imagined, you're still experiencing it anyway.
Yeah.
But that's a good point that you made, because when these sensations start to turn into the story, that's where you can regain power again. That's where you can start saying, okay, pause, put a pause on the game real quick. Um, do some grounding, few grounding breaths, and again, communicate with yourself. Is this true? Is this thing true? Is this worst case scenario true? Or is it some other imagined or some past memory speaking through my body?
I mean, the science has shown that, again, anxiety is an emotion. Emotions only reside in the body for up to 90 seconds, as long as we don't let it be perpetuated through
If you let
thought.
them go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Or else they'll last forever, you know.
Yeah.
We were talking about in the last show, we were talking about that emotional bill, the bill comes due, and we may not experience that emotion that's causing us harm for more than a few minutes at a time, but it adds up. It adds up, and it will just jump out of nowhere for no reason too if we don't pay the bill. So
Just sort of look at it like weather. It's temporary and it's not reality. Reality
right,
still hasn't happened yet.
right,
And the more
right.
I like how you brought up control, because that's what it's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Anxiety is trying to control predictive outcomes to save you from harm.
Yeah.
The more you can release the need for control, the more you can release the desire to know what's going to happen, the more you can move with the ebb and flow of how things can go to the best case scenario. When you focus too much on what the worst outcome could be, when you're catastrophizing into all these different outcomes, you restrict the ability to bring your full self to the situation you are involved in and
Yeah.
allow yourself to act with grace, because often when you're planning for 100 outcomes, you narrow your response because you're ready to react depending on whatever is coming your way.
Yeah. Axiom of light. Agonizing over a situation to resolution provides limited gain and comfort. The price you pay long term for not letting go can be great, right? It's exactly as you said. To endlessly and obsessively ruminate over a situation, thinking that that's the path to resolution, it may feel safe for a minute. You may feel like you're gaining ground for just a minute, probably that 90 seconds that you're talking about. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Because, like, when you're relentlessly pursuing closure of something, that will exact a toll, and it outweighs any immediate benefits that you hope to gain because you're trying to control the whole thing. That's a really good one. That's yeah, you're right on the money for that. That's a good one
When
because
I,
it
I
really.
remember when you first gave me that axiom, it resonated so much with me because I was going through a situation where it's just like I was so honed in on what I wanted the outcome to be that I refused to look at the potential avenues outside of that. And it was just constant anxiety because I was trying so hard to make it work.
Hmm.
And it was destructive.
Yeah. Well, I always say, hey, just let's pause for a second. Breathe, breathe. Take your shoes off. Touch the grass, man. You know,
You know?
this is this is just a temporary thing. It can't rain all the time.
You
Unless you
know?
live in Washington State, then it rains literally every day. But
That's why we're not there.
that's why I'm not there. Yeah. But look, at the end of the day, this again, we shouldn't fight these messengers. These messengers are trying to protect us. We need to start witnessing and we need to start seeing them and hearing them for what they are. And when we do that, everything can start to change.
And treat them with love and kindness. You can think you can conquer anxiety. That's not a realistic thing. There are only two groups of people who don't have anxiety. One group are dead people.
That's how you know you're alive, man.
The second
Right.
group, psychopaths.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone else deals with anxiety to some degree.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's natural.
It is. It is. It is. It's about not controlling everything that's happening outside of you. It's about controlling the narrative and making sure that it's true, that what you're feeling is something that you need to deal with. And oftentimes it may be, but if we don't know what's causing it, what's triggering it, then we can't take steps to start to heal it, integrate it, to honor those witnesses or honor those messengers within us. We can't look at. This is where over the years we start to, and I think most people now in the circles that our path, our philosophy kind of travels in, where many years ago it was about suppression, and all suppression of emotions, all it does is cause you to get sick. We don't seek to make enemies of ourselves. Our emotions are messengers. Our shadows are parts of us that are being dragged out into the light, and they just want to be connected to us too. They want to be part of the whole. So We can't make enemies of ourselves. And how do we do that? By pausing and having these conversations with ourselves. Restore that line of communication. Build a bridge to yourself.
So let's talk about interrupting the spiral before it begins. Catching the anxiety as it starts to rise. What are some things we can do to help ground ourselves when anxiety likes to spike up like it does?
Well, you can't outthink, you can't overthink or outthink. You can't solve this with logic, really, right? This isn't a logical problem because you can't outthink a dysregulated nervous system. It is going to do what it does. It's going to do what it was designed to do, what it was literally built to do. You have to start where anxiety starts, and that's in the body, by noticing, becoming aware of the little things, a sensation or a twitch, or, you start to get hot for no reason, right? It doesn't matter. However anxiety affects you, and I think it probably affects us all mostly the same, because we all have pretty much the same kind of nervous system, but you have to start in the body.
Well, and like you said, the pause is one of the most precious weapons you have against yourself. To be able to catch yourself as it's starting to build up and just pause. Take a deep breath, box breathing.
Yeah.
Do the calming breath. Bring yourself to a point where you can reflect internally. What's really going on here? Ask yourself the question, what does my body remember?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to name these things. We say this all the time. You got to call it out. And don't do it judgy, but do it with love and concern for yourself, and name these things. When you say, when your chest gets tight or your hands get hot or whatever it is, or you're fluttering, you can't just say, what is wrong with me, or something is definitely wrong with me. You got to call these things out as they're happening, because you're describing what's happening, and that gives you a chance to communicate with yourself. And the more you do that, the more likely you start to learn that, okay, I'm not having a heart attack. I don't need to run to the hospital. I don't have to do these things, because once you call it out, then it says, okay, thank God he finally sees me. He's listening to me. Now's my chance to tell him what's wrong. Possibly, and it may take you a bunch of times to do that. It probably will. It took me years, but this is why it's important to get help. And if it's not super bad, find a trusted mentor, find a trusted teacher. If you're religious, find a trusted minister or monk or whatever you subscribe to. But if it does affect your life in a way where you're not able to function very well, then you have to get some real professional help, right? I mean, a coach probably isn't going to do it. If you're constantly paralyzed, you have to get some, and there's nothing wrong with that. Again, none of this is judgy. Don't ever feel, we talk a lot about having to break stigmas. I would love to take a hammer to this stigma. I would love to shatter it with a single blow, because it hurts people. I would say it kills some people when they feel like they can't get help because they're going to be ostracized or whatever, or they're going to lose a job over it, or lose their rights to something or another. This is why veterans a lot of times don't get help, because they're afraid that they're going to be, put in the system and then treated badly. So it's a very bad stigma. We talked with Gabe about that, a few shows back. Yeah, you have to call it out, dude. That's a perfect point. And of course, grounding and breathing, like you said, because really, when this is happening, it's happening in the moment. It's not happening next week. It's happening right now. We gotta be as present as possible. That's where our most powerful awareness is. I guess some would argue that's where our only awareness is. A true awareness, right? Is now, being present. And the more you can do that, the more you can bring yourself back to the moment. You'll be able to come back to the moment quicker the more you do it, but you'll also be able to start noticing the other signs, the other signals that you're getting that maybe you didn't notice before. And you can start to head these things off.
Another important maneuver, this helped me a lot when I was going through a lot of my chronic anxiety after I went through everything I did, is doing cold exposure. And you can do this anywhere as long as you're in a building, right? I go to a faucet, turn on that cold water, let it blast, splash myself in the face a couple of times, shock my nervous system back to baseline. Cold showers. That's one of the reasons ice baths is so big, is it's great to help stimulate that sensation in the nervous system and pull you back into the present moment.
Yeah. Those little fidget toys I see people use. Those are good. Yeah.
I keep one on my desk.
Yeah. Those little little fidget toys. Let me see yours. You said you got one right there?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
something I can play around with.
Yeah. Little fidget toys, right? I think that's what they call them, right? Fidget toys?
Yep.
Because they have like little things you can do, but they have textures or, you know, if
Oh,
you wear.
there's so many varieties of them. Yeah, like this one is
Mhm.
just one you move around and it does different shapes and stuff. And it's like I'm never looking at it trying to make anything, but it's a great little fidget item.
Something that Heather does. Something that Heather does. She plays with her. I see her playing with her bracelet, or she'll play with her hair. She does that a lot. People do that. But whatever brings you back to the present. Give your mind and your nervous system something else to focus on. Maybe don't jump in a frozen pond, but I guess if that works. But
Yeah.
I do the water. I've done the water thing where it's just, and really it's kind of strange because sometimes before I start getting to that point where it's going to be a problem, I'll get really super hot all of a sudden, right? So that
So
cold water really, my body's like, please throw water on me because we're overheating. And, there's nothing wrong with me physically. Like I'm not sick or anything, but because as soon as I bring myself, it's not the water that cools my whole body down, throwing it on my face. It's the grounding. It's this recentering. And then my body goes back into,
when really just being able to name it, again, when it starts to come up, being able to stop. That's what's helped me so much is being able to just contain it into my body, not letting my mind touch it. Our mind is dyed by the color of the things going on inside in our bodies. So
yeah.
being able to stop it, this is anxiety. This is just I'm getting some heart racing going on. There's nothing going on around me. I'm safe. I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of
Yeah.
trying to create a story.
Something you introduced to the show many moons ago. This is gonna be episode 81, by the way. That's crazy. But something you introduced many shows ago was the what if. How we get stuck in that cycle of rumination. What if, but
Yep.
what if? We need to switch that to what is. What is happening right now? I don't care about what's happening then. Certainly don't have any clue what's going to happen then. I need to be concerned with what's happening right now. Why am I feeling this way? Where am I feeling it? How can I help you, sir? Type thing, right?
Yeah. Am I really in a threat? Is there really a threat going on right now in my
Mm-hmm.
life?
Yeah, because this thing could spiral like a wildfire. Sometimes it feels like, and when you're able to ground or come back to center or back to your breath or whatever the case, whatever pulls you out of that fire loses its fuel. It has no more fuel to burn. It just, right? It comes
Yep.
back down. So, and you got to try to stay in that center as long as you can because, although the emotions only last a few seconds, a minute and a half or something, that sense of peace and that sense of stillness and that sense of security and safety that you can bring yourself back to, that has much longer lasting effect.
Another big one, and I know I was bringing this up earlier, is the internal locus of control,
Mm-hmm.
which is where you take ownership of the role of outcomes in your life, but of the things you have control over. I remember I went through this period of my life where I was having panic attacks every other day. And the thing that grounded me was the serenity prayer. That is something that I
Mm-hmm.
instilled into my very being. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And the reason this was
Mm-hmm.
so powerful for me is I realized almost everything I was stressed about, I had absolutely no control over. And often I feel like that's what anxiety is. We want to manage the outcomes, we want to manage people, we want to manage all these situations in our life, check engine lights, And
Yeah.
when we can ground ourselves in what is it I do have control over in this moment? Check engine light, all right. I can't afford a repair right now. That is just how the situation is. So if I save up this much money for the next 2 paychecks, I'll be able to address this issue.
Yeah.
When it comes to a bad work situation, what can I do to manage the stress better? Can I change departments? Can I find a new job? Like all things that are overwhelming us, if we look at what part can we play in avoiding this suffering? What part can we do to take ownership of our lives? Can help direct that mentality to a much more productive thought process than one that is just drowning in suffering.
Yeah. No, you're right. Because the suffering and anxiety really is strongest when we feel powerless. The more powerless we feel, the worse it gets. And that comes from where things that we're trying to control are really just unpredictable life things.
Yep.
And we have to remember that we don't control,
Much.
95% of what happens outside of us. I'm just making this number up, but it's probably close to that, of the things happening around us are out of our hands. We have no
Yeah.
control over these things, but we have 100% control of what happens inside, and I'll say that with a little asterisk, right? As you are starting your healing journey, you will have not a lot of control what happens inside of you either. This is why you take these small steps, but you can regain 100% control through this process, right? And I know it won't feel like that at first. It'll be like, well, I'm still having anxiety, Justin. Well,
It's even worse now.
yeah, because now that I know that I'm responsible for this, it just got worse.
Yep.
And that's also perfectly natural. Do not judge yourself for that. That's natural, because you have to literally relearn and rebuild things that just went crazy on you somewhere.
Yeah.
Probably more than likely when stuff went crazy on you before you had any real power in the world, even power over yourself. Right? When
It's like there's this interview I listened to with Jordan Peterson, and he was talking about how life is suffering. It's a very pessimistic way to look at life, but life is suffering.
He's a
We will go
pessimistic
through the
dude.
crap. But I love his stuff so much. But he talks about this, and it's true. Life will deal us some rough cards at some very inconvenient times.
Yeah.
That is how life works, and we don't want to be at the mercy of it. We got to learn to manage what it is we can control, because in that moment, you allow yourself to step back, not look at all the things outside of your control, but what you can. How can I respond to this situation? How can I show up in a way that's going to make an impact and change my life for the better? This is a detrimental shift that can happen. One thing you can do to start cultivating this is just stopping. When you start getting into that catastrophizing, when you start getting overwhelmed, stop and ask yourself, what is it I can change in the next, what can I influence in the next
Right.
5 minutes? And just
Yeah.
evaluating that. Again,
Well, look,
if your job's horrible, start looking for a new job. Start building that resume. Take action, but don't make it be sporadic and anxiety-induced action.
yeah, because look, the truth is, this is the bottom line. This anxiety doesn't come from too much responsibility. It comes from too little agency.
Yes.
You're not taking enough responsibility for what you have power over. And, this internal locus of control is something that's very important to this and very vital, because it's one of the most powerful antidotes to our anxiety, because it doesn't mean controlling everything. It simply means remembering, right? Remembering here that you have influence, you have choice, and what you're trying to regain control over is your presence.
Yes.
But you have to remember that presence must be there each moment, and you only got to take it moment to moment. That's all you got to do. But you got to own that moment, right? You have to own it with all of your being. So when you shift from this idea that everything is happening to me, and you switch that to play a role in what happens next, starting with this moment, that's where these things start to soften a little bit. And you stop feeling like a passenger in your own car. You get to take the driver's seat.
Yeah. Ask yourself, what outside of my control can I release?
Mm-hmm.
And you start letting go of these burdens that's taking up so much of your energy, of your mental bandwidth. It gives you that capacity back to start channeling it towards things that you do have control over.
Yeah. What can I control in the next 5 minutes, even?
Yeah.
Not tomorrow, not the whole problem, just right now, and for the next 5 minutes. Wouldn't you say that anxiety kind of operates in the future?
Yeah, it's weird because it's all the energy inside is stored from past experiences,
Right.
but anxiety 100% lives in the future.
Right.
It is always trying to be a future seer, and it's never really a good one.
So if trauma lives in the past and anxiety lives in the future, where is all your power then?
Not in the present.
All your power is here. This is the only place you can make a difference. You can't change that.
Yeah, if you move out of them, yes.
Yes, you got to stay here with this kind of stuff, because that's where your only power is now, right?
Yeah.
Is now. And I don't want people to think that accountability is taking blame for something. But accountability here is also a source of empowerment when we're talking about the locus of control.
Yeah.
Right? Because when we're able to start taking responsibility for our inside, for our inner world, our choices, our thoughts, our patterns, these things, we can start to reclaim the ability to shift them, to integrate them into something that's not suffering, into something that gives us power to control what's happening to us.
Yeah, it allows us to pivot. It allows us to pivot from that helplessness into a place where you can be responsible for your own life.
Right. There are things in the world that we are helpless to. That's just a fact of life, right? We can't control economies, and we can't control governments, and we can't control our loved ones, right? But that doesn't mean you have to be completely helpless. You can respond differently. You can choose differently as you start this work.
Yep.
But you have to become someone who trusts themselves enough to meet everything head on.
And that takes time sometimes. I know for me, I had spent a decade destroying my self-trust. And I remember I had one of my closest friends come to me and he wanted to start a business venture. And he's like, come on, how can we make money right now? How can we do this? And it's like, bro, I need to start with manageable steps so I can reclaim that trust. And it started with just going to the gym every day. That is one of the best places to be in. Or start smaller than that. I'm going to show up at the gym twice this week. Do manageable, bite-sized things to start rebuilding that trust within yourself so that when the time comes, you know you're going to show up for yourself.
Yeah. We talk about harmony all the time here. So I want you to put anxiety one scale, right, on one tray of the scale. And then I want you to put self-trust and faith in yourself in another scale. And the more you add to self-trust, the more anxiety comes down. That is the only way to balance this, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Right? So, and faith in a higher power, faith in people that are in your circle of trust, that helps too. Good people will teach you how to be good to yourself. Good people will teach you how to trust yourself and have faith in yourself. And that's what we seek to do. As Luminari, we seek to be that example, to be that light. But also to, as you guys hear all the time on the show, we call ourselves out too. So but it's important. That's how you start to balance the scales of that, though. That's where you start to find harmony, self-trust, faith in your ability to take good care of yourself.
So I think one thing that would be really good to talk about with this is sort of doing some nervous system hygiene.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I think it's a good way to look at it, because we have to stop treating this kind of thing as like just a momentary storm that may never come again, but looking at it as a climate, maybe, instead of a storm.
Well, and again, that repression, if you don't listen to it, goes from talking to you to yelling at you to grabbing the megaphone and just screaming at you.
Well, yeah, because what we're trying to accomplish here is not managing the spikes, although we do have to manage those, but it's about creating a better baseline for our nervous system.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Build resiliency in it.
Yes. And hygiene. I love the way you put that. That's perfect. Is that a term that other people use? I've never heard that before.
I'm TMing it right now.
Nice.
Take it. Nice.
A quarter for any time anybody says it.
Be rich in a week.
Yeah. I mean, it's spot on, because just like with physical hygiene, it keeps us healthy and keeps us right.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes down to it, your habits matter more than the panic itself. The habits you have in your life is what helps dictate your self-trust, your resiliency, your ability to cope with difficult situations.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about hitting the gym earlier. Hitting the gym is one of the best ways to manage anxiety. Lifting weights, running on a treadmill, getting that energy out of the system.
Yeah. Movement, you're talking about movement right now. That's powerful. Your body needs consistent movement, not just to keep us in shape, but to keep our mind healthy. The gym is great for that. I know a lot of people that cured their depression just by forcing themselves to go to the gym and working out, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like we store up cortisol and adrenaline in our bodies. And when we get these anxiety spikes, especially if they're a lot, it's a buildup of these hormones in our bodies that just constantly are trying to flood us. Yeah. And exercise helps break down these chemicals in the body and helps them release through us.
That literally is something that was plaguing me. My body tends to overproduce adrenaline. And Cortisol is not my friend. I get too much of that too. And it does build up and it causes weird, weird pains. So I really have to get up and move around, even if it's just little things. Because if I don't, then I'll literally be laying in bed all day.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's like we're not meant to handle loads of adrenaline and cortisol. You look at animals in the animal kingdom, and I love this example of like a gazelle when it gets chased by a freaking lion. It
yeah.
runs, it runs. Its life is an absolute danger, more than any of us have probably
Yeah.
experienced.
Right,
And
right.
once it evades the lion, that that gazelle is going to shake it out. It is going to convulse like it's having a seizure. But as soon
Yeah.
as it does, it goes right back to grazing like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, it's just gone. Just gone. Yeah. Yeah. Our body doesn't just want to calm down, right? It needs somewhere to send all that excess chemical energy. Our bodies are fascinating. I mean, truly fascinating. I learn facts about the body every day that just blow my mind. But not only do we have electrical energy, spiritual energy, etheric energy, universal energy, but we got to deal with chemical energy too. And it's a lot.
Yeah. Another important thing is making sure you get sleep.
Yeah.
I suffered from chronic anxiety, and one of the key factors I never considered is, I'm only getting 3 to 5 hours of sleep a night, and that's been consistent for like 3 years. Why am I
Mm.
dealing with so much stress and fatigue and just fog?
Because
And
you're
then,
not healing. You're not giving your, that's when our body heals. It's when we're sleeping, right? That's why rest is the best medicine, right? That's why they always telling you to rest, rest, rest. That's why they knock you out in the hospital so that you sleep.
That's the best sleep ever.
Dude, when I had my when I had my surgery, that was literally the greatest sleep I've ever had that I can
that's
remember, man.
great.
I mean, seriously, it's like to me only like 10 minutes went by, but I woke up like renewed. My leg my leg was all banged up and had a bunch of cuts on it and a bunch of screws in it, but otherwise, dude, I felt great. I was ready. But that also ties hand in hand with the movement. The more we move, the more we physically exert ourselves, the easier it is for us to sleep. And I love how these all tie in together because then nutrition comes into play.
Yep.
And that plays a huge role in our lives. Most weight loss, it's mostly nutrition when you're trying to lose weight, right?
Yep.
I mean, a good chunk of it is exercise too, but the bigger part of it is nutrition. And when we take in a lot of caffeine, a lot of sugar, and those nasty processed foods, they amplify our cortisol. This is something that Jenna taught me. Jenna, we had her on the show a while back, right? She talked,
Yep.
you guys went into the spikes in cortisol and these things and how they cause us a lot of problems. All these foods, nicotine, caffeine, too much sugar, too much processed foods, those all increase our cortisol. And when you have too much cortisol, again, like we're talking about, you get a lot of actual health problems. So,
Yep.
and so, yeah, so nutrition is really important because our brains need food. Our brains need nutrition. And when we starve those of food, then we have problems too.
Yep. Another important one is
Blah, blah, blah.
to make sure you have a predictive routine. You get habits are best built in routine. We are creatures of habit. And if you do not have a routine or structure to your life, you will never be able to get ahead of yourself because you're going to be constantly jumping from one place to the other. They talk about ADHD, and I truly believe like when we start processing these emotions, when we start being able to hone into our passions and start being able to create structure in our lives, we can avoid a huge percentage of what ADHD does to us. Because with that structure, your mind automatically knows, I'm going to this task, I'm going to this task.
Yeah. And one of your favorite things, digital hygiene.
Yep. Being careful how much time you're spending on those screens, especially on social media.
But if you only got like 2 hours a day, we love it that you spend it with us.
That's
I
the
mean,
one exception.
I might be biased there, but
I think that's wise advice, actually.
yeah, yeah. I tend to give a little bit of wise advice every so often.
Oh, sometimes you're pretty good at it. I think you should do a podcast on that.
I'll think about it.
And again, like anxiety isn't all bad. Anxiety is an emotion. It's here to teach us things. It's here to show us things. It's a signal in our bodies, and it's not meant to be punishment. Again, I know so many people that struggle with anxiety and it's just like, how do I conquer my anxiety? How do I get rid of my anxiety? And it's like, you don't want to do that. It's a guide, it's a messenger that can help you figure out what you need to do in a given situation, especially once you learn to integrate it, you learn to work with it. You treat
Right.
it with love and kindness and acceptance.
It's again, it's just a messenger, man. It could be overstimulation. It could be you're carrying too much weight. It could be, hey, you're not being very good to yourself,
You know?
right? It could be you're eating really horrible food. It could be you're not exercising enough. It could be so many things, but listen to it when it talks to you. It's a teacher. Everything we do here, right? I always say, and I'll beat this horse to death. Everything can be a teacher if you let it. Stay curious, stay open. Let yourself accept the mission, accept the message, accept the lesson.
Experience.
Yes. And it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. I get it. But it does illuminate those spaces where things from the past are causing you future problems.
Yep.
Remember, the trauma comes from the past. The anxiety is in the future. Your power is now, in that moment. Use it wisely.
So, what ways can anxiety be a teacher?
Well, it teaches us to learn to be aware of what's happening to us. And then it allows us to, learn, integrate, because if we just try to fight everything, if we treat it with fear or frustration, it doesn't go away. It gets worse. And that bill keeps piling up, that emotional toll that you're going to have to pay for that at some point, probably in your body somewhere. And it could become a disease if you're not careful. But what if we approach things with curiosity? The student is the best teacher, after all. And that's about being curious.
Yeah.
What if we approached it with curiosity? What if our question, Michael, wasn't, how do I get rid of this? How do I destroy this evil scourge upon me? And what if we just ask it instead, what is this trying to tell me? What is this asking of me? What can I learn from this? Right?
Often it carries really important messages. It could be showing you where you're ignoring your own needs, whether
Yes.
that's advocating for yourself or stepping out of your comfort zone, or if boundaries have been crossed. I know that was a big one for me. One of the aha moments I've had in the last year is I had a friend do something that I didn't appreciate, and it just like I felt all this anxiety and it hit me. It's like I need to confront this dude and tell him that I did not appreciate this. In doing so, gone.
Yeah, and it actually worked out in your favor for doing that.
Yep.
Imagine that, right? Well, we talked about boundaries in the last show, and that's exactly how you do it.
Yeah.
You did it masterfully, perfectly, because you were like, "Hey," and then you actually felt it in your body,
Which is so important.
Well, it is, but that's the great thing about this work, about healing. You will know when you're starting to come out of it. You'll know when you're starting to rebuild, when you're starting to create those new connections with yourself, because you will feel it. You will actually feel it, and it won't feel bad. It'll feel great. You'll feel peace. If you've never felt stillness or peace, trust me, when you do, it is like being reborn. It is such a powerful state of being.
So true, though. I think one of my favorite things about anxiety in recent years as I've been doing this work is it often tells me where I still need to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Someone says something, there's something I don't like. I get that flare up in the body. And it's like, what is it trying to show me about the past that still has influence over my life?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, this is going to sound counterproductive, but by befriending this discomfort, you build more self-trust. You start to tip the scales again back in your favor, and you start to find that balance and harmony. I know that sounds counterproductive. What, do you want me to become friends with this thing? Yes, I do, because it's there to protect you. It's there to help you, right? We're not here to destroy it. We're not here to banish it to the Badlands forever, because you can't. It will just keep coming up in really horrible ways for you. Yes, I want you to befriend it. I want you to treat it like a teacher, because it will teach you how to be better for yourself.
In the end, it's not about mastering it. It's about building a relationship with it.
Yeah, because you're building a relationship with yourself. Yeah. And it can be like a teacher calling you deeper into your mastery of that relationship with yourself.
Anxiety is not the enemy. It is one of the greatest gifts we are given. We just don't understand it when we're first starting off. I know for me, I was diagnosed with chronic anxiety as a child. At the age of 5, I was diagnosed with chronic anxiety,
Mm,
and I was constantly told this was a bad thing, that I needed
hmm.
medications for it. It's
Right.
treated as some kind of mental illness,
Yes.
when in fact, it's a part of life.
It's an important part of us. It protects us. It protects us. But when we treat it like the plague, or treat it like a leper, of course there's going to be suffering, because what? Guess what? There's disconnection there. And
Oh,
disconnection is what?
disconnection's what?
It's hell.
It's hell.
Disconnection is hell. It's suffering. Fire and brimstone, man. It sucks. It hurts. It literally hurts. So, yeah, it's not a bad thing. It just needs, just like the ego, it needs to be it needs to be integrated into your being. It's a part of you. It's trying to help you. It's trying to save you. But it doesn't know the difference. It doesn't know how to save you per se. It
Yeah.
just knows how to light you up like a Christmas tree sometimes, and it's unpleasant.
Yeah.
But that's
Well,
only
like
because you're ignoring it.
Well, it's like we said. I mean, the more you repress it, the louder it becomes, the more control it has over your life. Do you have any final thoughts before we close this out?
I do. So as we come to the end of this conversation, I again want to remind, and I want you to remember something important. Anxiety is not a flaw in your design. It is there by design. It's a part of your internal guidance system, right? It's this messenger from deep, deep down. And it's physically, literally connected to you. It's that way on purpose. You were never meant to walk through this life numb or certainly not disconnected. You were meant to feel, and you're meant to respond, and you're meant to learn from what comes up in you, right?
Yeah.
We are creatures that receive signals both from outside and inside. It's important that we treat them with the respect that they deserve, because they are not our enemies. And some of you may have heard a different perspective on anxiety. Many of you have been told and believe that it's an enemy to fight. But it's a signal, and it invites you to reconnect with yourself if you let it. And the more you listen to your signals, the more you listen to your messengers, the more you'll notice that anxiety isn't random. It is almost intelligent in a way, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
It's purposeful. It is pointing you towards the places that healing will happen and wants to happen. So here's my call of action to everyone today. This week, choose one moment of anxiety, just one, and make sure you practice the pause. And instead of rearing from it or reeling from it or bracing or pushing against it or trying to control it, just breathe with it and just ask, what's up, bro? What are you trying to show me? Clearly, there's something wrong here. And let your curiosity replace your fear, and be compassionate instead of judgy. Don't be judgy to yourself. Everybody outside of you is already doing enough of that to last all of us a lifetime. Don't do it to yourself too.
Yeah.
Right? Because every single moment of presence, you start to retrain and rebuild your nervous system in a way to trust you again and for you to trust it. And as we always say, we talk about putting ourselves through the forge, where we are the forge, we are the smith, we are the raw materials, right? Mastery doesn't come from avoiding discomfort. It doesn't. If you want to find wisdom, you have to meet these things head on. You have to call them out, as hard as that is. Do not try to conquer your anxiety. You have to just stop abandoning yourself. Start trusting yourself when it shows up. And, learn how to ground yourself. It's really, really important. So that's all I have for today.
That was good stuff. For our affirmations today, I can handle what I feel one moment at a time. My sensations are temporary, and they do not define me. I trust myself to respond instead of react. I choose what I give my power and attention to. I am safe in my body and present in this moment.
Good ones.
For our journaling prompts today, what sensations show up in my body when I feel anxious? And what stories does my mind attach to those sensations? Where in my life do I feel powerless? And what parts of the situation are actually within my control? If my anxiety could speak plainly, what would it be trying to warn me about or protect me from? Those are great little exercises to go through anytime you're starting to feel anxiety, to really pick it apart and find meaning. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please check out our YouTube, our Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We're all over the place. And don't forget to check out the best website ever, newashla.com. And thank you so much for making it through to the end. We hope you got something from this episode and that you get that much closer to learning to befriend your anxiety. With love and gratitude, Ad Lucem.
Ad Lucem. Love you guys.